right, folks, we continue to look at the wide-open four-way race for Ward 3 in Litchfield. And we're joined by Leo Hernandez, one of the candidates. And, for the uninitiated, just tell us a little about yourself. I know you proudly wear that, is it a brown uniform? Is it more tan? I forgot the exact color. I know they've changed the uniform over at the sheriff's office a little bit.
I believe it's like a silver tan. I work for the sheriff's office. Have so for 3 years. Before that, I did work for Nokomis PD for a short period of time. I did work for the jail for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit more than that, which Sheriff Rick Robbins hired me for that position back in 2019 after I moved back from North Carolina. Did 4 great years over there in North Carolina with the Marine Corps.
The move back home, just tell us what inspired you to run? What made you say, you know what, I'm going to tie up some of my Thursday nights if I can?
I was asked about the position from some people about maybe it was a good idea for me to throw my hat into the ringer. And I thought about it, and I didn't think I would be a good fit for it in a sense of, like, it's not really something that I particularly entertain. Then as I sat on it and continued to think about it, I thought there was a possibility that I would actually be fairly decent at it. At the same time, like, I'm very realistic. I don't really have crazy ideas. I'm just hoping that, I can get in there and have a voice with the other council members to see some things go in the right direction.
So were you a little surprised when all of a sudden 4 candidates spring up? That's a pretty big number for a local election.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised about that. When I had decided to put my name into the drawing there, I knew that there was only one other candidate. And then as time went on and the packets were like, hey, we're done, all the candidates are putting their name in, I was like, well, how many are there? And they said 4 for our ward. And I was like, all right, that's a pretty good number. There's some competition there, especially with all the experience of the other guys. So,
anything that drew your attention as far as concerns, whether it be citywide or in Ward 3, that stood out to you?
Well, as far as concerns, I live obviously in the Ward 3 on the northern part of town. I think we have a fairly decent neighborhood. When we moved in there, we thought it was a good spot for us, and we still think it is, obviously. As far as the city, I don't know what direction. I read the council members now on the city webpage, and I don't know what direction they're actually trying to go towards. I understand that they want to bring in business and stuff, but there's no new businesses coming in. So I don't know what has to be done to implement maybe incentives or something like that for new business to come in to draw more revenue for the city. I just wish that we could break it down, spend less money on stuff, and help our city grow so that, honestly, when my kids get 10, 15 years old, they have something to do. As me, being 27, there's nothing to do in that town. But we drive down south to Edwardsville for, a Friday, Saturday family night to go do something.
The economy, just your thoughts about the local economy, what it needs, and what you believe would help in that regard.
Well, as far as the economy itself, outside of our city, it's not the best right now. I know we just had the presidential candidacy and stuff, so we got to wait a little bit to see what happens. I mean, things don't change overnight. As far as our local city, if we could implement a 5 to 10 year plan, which that's my biggest thing, is like if we had a plan to draw in businesses and stuff like that to help with revenue, to help put back stuff into our city, as far as like also utilizing like the TIF funds properly and using the revenue from businesses properly to help kind of revamp the town itself. But at the same time, things are expensive. It takes money to make money, And a lot of the families that we have living in our town are affected not only by what's happened in our city, but also, like I said, outside the cities too.
You know, the needs of Litchfield out there, they have certainly been discussed. Anything that hit a nerve with what the council's talked about? I know the sports park certainly drew some crowds. Just any issue that stands out in the last year that kind of hits a nerve?
Well, for me, the soccer park is, something that kind of hit a nerve. I partake in a summer league that plays soccer over there at the community center. I coach my son's little league soccer team as well as his t-ball team. But I've always been a huge fan of soccer, and I think if they would have dove deep into that development a little bit more instead of the short period of time, and then also having just complete negative towards it, I think they probably would have realized that it would have benefited our city more than actually hurt it. But I was not in council. I never saw anything as far as, what it actually entailed and what it was going to cost and the planning for it. So, I can't speak on, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. I just think if we did have it, we wouldn't have a liquor store sitting there right now, in which we already have plenty of other places to buy liquor.
Being in law enforcement, obviously, it helps you in the public safety realm, reviewing what goes on there. But I can imagine, because you have so much personal contact with the public, you have to be firm but diplomatic. I can imagine there are some things from law enforcement that could carry over to an aldermanic seat.
Yes, there are a lot of different skill sets that can carry over to being on the council. I think me as a person, if anyone has met me, I look at things on both sides. I'm a person that likes to work with other people. Some of the guys I might work with are very more authoritative than I am, but I like to treat people like people. My biggest thing is I give respect until I don't receive respect. And out of everyone I think I've worked with in the public, I've had more relationships built than burnt, which also, working with the public gives me a little bit more insight of what's going on, deep into our city, as far as, the issues with poverty, the issues with the drug crimes, personal issues as far as people's lives, like what's going on with them directly and stuff, which, they can have their own issues outside the city, but some stuff may come from the city as well. This whole animal control deal has been a big issue with some of the public, and the citizens of Litchfield, they're affected by not having this contract, and I've had to handle a few calls with that. With me living in Litchfield, when I do work my hours and I know that Litchfield PD is tied up on stuff, I just go handle the calls as much as I can just to help them out, because they're always a good asset to us.
What do you see as the strengths of Litchfield?
I think what Litchfield has going for them is the fact that they're right off the interstate. That's probably obviously the biggest one. That's where they're going to make their money, especially with that in an industrial way. If you could get some decent businesses in there that are going to pull people off of 55 to utilize those, that's just going to bring back in revenue for the city. With that being said, you also have the lake. There's a lot of people that travel from the southern areas and the northern areas of the state, sometimes Missouri, sometimes other states, just to utilize the lake. That right now is a big attraction during the seasonal months, obviously. So, you have the mixture of small town city life with a little, obviously rural life outside to the east of the town. It's like a decent mixture of both worlds. And if you go to any of these other cities within our county, obviously they don't have the businesses that Litchfield does. So it's just a comfort living in town where we live. I mean, my son's a big eater at McDonald's, and I mean, we can drive 3 minutes to go to McDonald's. I can drive a minute to go to the gym because I'm big into fitness. I can drive 2 minutes to go to U-Belts because I love their pastries. The community in which, the area I live in, they're all very friendly. Like, they've always, have welcomed me in to the community and stuff, with moving back in from 2019.
Your thoughts on current level of police and fire protection? And I know you may get a chance to work with Litchfield Police on an occasional. So I know it's difficult. I don't want to put you in a bad spot there, but
the fire and police department over in Litchfield they're a great group of guys to work with. They have a lot of talent. They put in and day out, constant work to protect in that city. I understand that the fire department is looking at possibly hiring, I think it was 2 additional crew members, which obviously that's going to cut down on a lot of their overtime pay that they have to pay throughout the year, which will tremendously help the budget. I'm not a firefighter, and I don't go to their firehouse every single day. Actually, I probably go once a year. I don't really go in their backyard a whole lot. But they seem like they have fairly decent equipment. They have a great chief. They've always been helpful with me on, accidents and other issues outside of the city of Litchfield, obviously because I work for the county. So I have nothing but good things to say about the fire department. It's just if we can get under control their overtime budget, then that would help tremendously. Now, as far as the police department, those are the best guys on this planet Earth. They have a great chief that listens to what his guys have to say. He helps work with them and stuff like that. They're always, they're starting to implement more training. They're hiring a couple younger guys. Some of the older guys are getting close to retirement, and their overtime budget is dramatically less than the fire department. And I am not trying to get into that at all, because whatever they got to do to make sure our city's protected, that's what they got to do.
Well, what do you see as the benefits of being in your age group? Not only getting representation for people, emerging, buying their first homes and what have you. Do you see that as something that will get folks in that upper 20s, early 30s age range a little more involved?
I think it would. I think, we're getting into times where our younger generations are starting to step foot into these different roles within the community. With being only 27, I've experienced a lot of life issues and different things that someone in their 20s or mid 20s would never experience until they're in their mid 30s. We have 2 kids. We bought our first house at the age of 22. So I have a lot of life experience for the young age that I am, especially with the careers that I decided to choose. I think by me stepping in, showing that I could do something, then maybe the other generation will start to kind of step into. And plus, I have a wide variety of friends. I have older friends, I have younger friends. I have some friends that are just about my age, and I've both friend groups or age groups, I just say, have questioned me on this stuff. So they're obviously engaged in it just as much as I am.
Just any thoughts on how your experience as a veteran could help on that side of the equation when we talk about homelessness, addiction, whatever other struggles may come into play?
it's a very tough topic. I think, with the state that we live in, obviously their goal is straight mental health. I mean, even in the policing world, there's a lot of mental health stipulations that we have to enforce. We have a crisis team. We have the Montgomery County Health Department. We have some resources that are available to utilize, but we don't have all the answers. And sometimes, depending on the situation, it's hard to get a resolution to help somebody. And I would say personally for me, even though I did not go overseas or I did not fight in any combat, that's not by choice. That's just the way it played out within my career. When I did get out of the service and move back home, the first year, it was tough. It was I had no sense of thinking I belonged. I didn't have a reason. I mean, I had my family, obviously, my wife and my child, but there was no really main point to what I was doing in the moment. It put a burden on my family, and I haven't been in any PTSD kind of moment, or I haven't experienced the combat life, but there is separation issues, and I think since I've experienced some of those, and I think everyone experienced those when they get out of the service, obviously I overcame those. I believe I can help other people with those issues as well. And working this career, we have there's veterans that have issues, and we've had to deal with them and talk to them and stuff, and just simply by talking to somebody like they're a person changes the whole situation. Do I wish there was more resources for us to use? Yes. The VA, they have their own thing going on. I mean, I work with the VA all the time, and it doesn't it's not usually the best, but there are stuff out there for people to utilize. Our city doesn't have those major resources, which don't really want to get into that too, because there's a 50-50 on whether it's good or bad to have those resources. But we do have other places outside of our county and outside of our city that do have those resources that we can point them in that direction. It's just whether they want to utilize them or not. That's on them.
Just finally, the economy. Anything you'd like to do to kind of give it a boost, or concerns on the economic development front?
As far as trying to do anything with the development, my biggest thought when I first got into this was, the whole 5 to 10 year plan kind of deal. I mean, if we were able to sit down and actually map out a plan and actually follow the plan and know that it's going to create growth and new development and benefit the city, then that would be a major point with helping the city. I know there's a economic development plan, or it's worded differently, I believe, on the city webpage, but it wasn't revised since like 2008. I know there's an updated copy, but it was never placed on the webpage itself. If we're able to revise a new copy, throw it out there on that page, people would see and understand what's going on. That's about all we can do.
Anything I missed, or any other thing you'd like to bring up?
No. Like I said, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to speak with me. And I think those were great questions, especially for working the night shift and waking up an hour ago.